Now, sit back and take a short journey with me into the past, to the glorious and extravagant days of Rome. But this time, we aren't going to talk about gladiators or senators in white robes. Instead, we're going to talk about something much closer to home, the story of the money in our pockets. Because what really happened to Rome was, in truth, the result of what happened to those famous silver coins. You know, when we think of Rome, we picture bearded barbarians battering massive gates, or dark conspiracies unfolding in palace corridors. But the reality is different. Empires don't collapse overnight. They don't fall all at once. They first begin to decay from the inside, slowly, like a tree rotting from within. And the biggest cause of that decay is, unfortunately, almost always, money. Our story begins with the denarius. In the 200s BC, this coin was made of nearly pure silver. Imagine holding it in your hand, feeling the weight, the coldness of the metal. Everyone trusted it: citizens, merchants, soldiers, and farmers. Rome's power was closely tied to the purity of its money. But ruling such a vast empire was incredibly expensive. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers had to be paid to guard the borders. Roads were built, massive aqueducts constructed. Over time, tax revenues were no longer enough to cover these costs. So, what did the emperors do? Instead of raising taxes and angering the people, they turned to one of the oldest tricks in history: stealing the silver from the coin. When Augustus became Rome's first emperor, the denarius was about 95% silver. Later emperors thought, what if we mix in a little copper? Who would notice? Under Caracalla, the silver content fell to 50%. Eventually, the coin became nothing more than a piece of copper coated with a thin wash of silver. The silver content had dropped below 5%. So, what happened next? Of course, the people weren't stupid. As the silver content declined, the baker stopped asking for 1 coin for a loaf of bread and started asking for 5. That is what we now call inflation. A Roman who once bought a sack of wheat with a single silver coin now found that those silver-painted copper discs could buy almost nothing. Soldiers rebelled, shouting, "Pay us more." Merchants refused to accept the money altogether. "Don't bring me coins," they said. "Bring me cattle. Bring me cloth." Trade returned to barter. As the Roman economy ground to a halt, Emperor Diocletian stepped in and declared, "I will fix the prices. No one is allowed to raise them, and anyone who does, will be executed." The result? A complete disaster. When no one wanted to sell goods at forced prices, the black market exploded, and the Roman economy began to suffocate. Does this sound familiar? Here is the crucial point. Rome made this mistake and paid for it with the collapse of an entire empire. But did the world learn its lesson? Unfortunately, no. Look at Germany in 1923. The government printed money non-stop to pay war debts. It got so bad that people carried cash in wheelbarrows just to buy a loaf of bread. Children played by stacking banknotes into towers, because paper money had become cheaper than the wood it took to heat a stove. Or look at Zimbabwe in 2008. Inflation spiraled so far out of control that prices doubled every single day. In the end, the country abandoned its own currency entirely. Today, we may not carry silver coins. We have paper bills or digital numbers on a screen. But since 1971, when the link between the dollar and gold was severed, the entire world has essentially been living in Rome's late-stage reality, a world of silver-plated copper. As governments print more money, the value of the wealth you earn with your hard work quietly melts away. So in the end, the lesson Rome gives us is this: money is not just a piece of paper or metal. It is a guarantee. It is a source of power. And above all, it is trust. Once that trust is lost, no army and no palace can keep a state standing. Inflation isn't just numbers going up, it's a silent cancer that drains the strength of a civilization. There's an old saying, history repeats itself. And if we don't learn from the past, we won't need barbarians at the gates. We will destroy our own economy ourselves. Don't look for the enemy far away. If this gave you a new perspective, subscribe. Let's explore history's answers, together.